Hey, Brian here. This video slash podcast is with many of the moderators and admins for the HVAC school group. A lot of really great guys who have helped us make this thing possible for a really long time. And we talk about what it takes to run a really good community online and some of the things that we have struggled with and some of the things we've worked on, some of the ways we've grown. It's a good way to get to know some of these really great people who have made this possible all this time. Hope you enjoy. All right, so I'm here with the some of the moderators and admins. Actually, I think everybody here is an admin of the HVAC school group, aren't we? Any?
No, I'm only a moderator.
You are only a You're a lowly moderator.
Yep.
Well, I think that actually comes from the fact. So that's Eric Kaiser speaking. That comes from the fact that early on, when I asked you to be a moderator, you were like really. You really didn't want to do it. Like I really had to talk you into it. Do you remember that conversation? That
I think so. Yeah, it was like, man, do I really want? Because I've moderated like on an admin on bulletin boards and things like that before, and I'm like, do I really want to take that on? But yeah, it hasn't been too bad, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to discuss here. So let's first just go around, quick intro of everybody here, so we'll start with you, Neil. You look like you're ready to introduce yourself here quickly.
I mean, who else is listening? Because that's
who else is listening?
Because I think everyone here knows me. But
well, yeah, but like nobody else is listening live. But this is going to be like we're gonna put this out to the masses. Mass media.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I am Neil Comparetto, and I have a HVAC company in Central Virginia. I'm also a admin of the HVAC school group for several years now. And
how many years?
Several.
I think it's been
4, 5, 4,
4.
It's been so long you forgot.
Okay.
You were an admin when I came on, and it's been at least 4 for me. So.
Yeah.
I think Neil's been at least 5. I think the group has been around for probably 6 years, or 5 or 6 years, something like that. So, well, yeah. So what's the name of your company, Neil?
The Comfort Squad.
The Comfort Squad.
Yes. Comfort Squad. And it's in Central Virginia, not Northern Virginia.
Did I say Northern Virginia?
Yeah, you said Northern Virginia. So we're getting all kinds of calls from Northern Virginia wanting us to do all kinds of stuff.
No, you're not. That's not true.
It actually is true, but not because of that.
Not because of that. Yeah, not because of me. Nobody listens to this podcast. So, and then you already heard from Eric Kaiser. Go ahead and give us your spiel, Eric.
Yeah, I'm just me. I just hang out, talk about a lot of stuff. No, I'm out of Indianapolis. I own a little consulting company that is one person, me, and do some training, do some consulting. Just generally try to help the industry move forward. Do a little bit of help on several groups on the Facebook realm. It's my big social media right there is Facebook. I can't figure out how to tweet or Twitter or whatever you call it. Instagram, it's just confusing.
No gramming. Also a master of understatement, apparently, because Eric is one of the brightest folks in our industry, and I'm constantly trying to give him more work, and he's getting really sick of it. So, and then Ty Brannaman.
Yeah, I'm just a student of HVAC. I love learning stuff. I like helping people. I'm the newest to admin moderation, what do you want to call it? I've avoided it forever, and then you just added me in, and I'm like, so I'm still learning from all these great people. So about how to do it and how to have that little harder line because I'm a softie. I'm like, I'll give him a 3rd or 4th or 5th chance. So I'm still learning a lot.
Yeah, Ty's the baby of the family. I think I actually. So if I remember how this happened. And I have a bad memory, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I asked you if you would do it. You didn't respond, and then I just made you a moderator and admin anyway.
Yeah,
I've done that a few times. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission, especially when you plan to rob a bank, which I've done only a few times. So it's good to have Ty. Ty's a longtime educator, has a great YouTube channel, and has worked with just a lot of different companies around the country, several different brands, and just a great educator, very passionate speaker, probably one of the most interesting speakers that I've had a chance to listen to. I was actually just talking to the guys from HVAC Excellence, and they were like, they were trying to talk me into doing a presentation again next year, and they're like, it was like, well, if you got Ty, then you're good to go. So anyway, and then Michael Hausch.
Yep. So I am Michael Hausch from Cincinnati, Ohio area, third generation HVAC owner, and I am all over Facebook like Eric. I don't tweet or gram or any of the other social media things, but I do Facebook.
Yeah, and which is kind of weird, like Facebook it's not my favorite, but it's there, and there's a big audience there. There's a lot of people interacting there, so I think it's where we are. A lot of people have asked, when I'm going to start a Reddit or I guess there's other things. I forget what what's the one that everybody's doing now?
TikTok.
That's kind of like Slack. You had mentioned it before, Michael. It's called it's one gamers use platform. We're gonna edit this out.
Discord.
Discord, right? Somebody asked when I was going to start a Discord. It's like, I don't know, just another thing to do. And so I'm just going to stick with this for now. So Facebook group, we've got 30 something thousand, 36,000, something like that. Is it more than that now? I don't know.
Almost 42.
Oh, 42,000. Okay. 42,000 people in the group. We really have kind of slowed down in our growth. We still get a lot of new folks, but I think it ends up, a lot of people end up getting kind of moved out because of some of our rules. And I want to kind of just start with that, which is just generally, Ty, you did a really great video about this, but just start by just having a discussion of what makes this sort of thing worth it. Like, what is the whole point of this in the first place? Because a lot of people come to social media for a lot of different reasons, obviously, and all of them are valid. I can't say that one person's reason is better than another, but in terms of having a community that's based around a profession, I just want to get some of your feedback on what do you think makes it worth doing. And I'll start with you, Ty, just because you're the one who did that recent video that I thought was really good.
Well, there's so many aspects of that could take me an hour alone just to go through that. What I love about it is the communication, things that it keeps me relevant with a lot of things that are happening, questions that people ask. I know that these are things that people still want to know. And the communication, even if there's somebody I disagree with, they bring a different viewpoint, and it keeps my mind open, keeps me to a broader way of thinking. And then, there's the random questions. I'm going and helping somebody, and I'll go to research and get my sources and realize there's more I need to learn. So for me, it's great because it keeps me relevant, keeps me learning. And then when you see people that get help, maybe it's the third or fourth or fifth question. And other groups, I mean, any social media, people can be harsh, but here, I mean, it's a lot more inviting. There's still going to be people that reply back with things, but it's for the most part, very welcoming. And I feel like I can share information without somebody attacking me. And I think that's a great, have that safe point, be professional, and we promote people to learn. And I think that's a very special thing.
I think that I agree with everything that Ty said, but some of the social media stuff can be like a low pressure area to like practice different things. So like, I'll try out maybe different wording in social media posts or something like that. And just kind of see how it works is one of the things that I like to use it for, especially like some of the homeowner groups or whatever, so I can sort of practice how I present things in a way that I can then take and use with my own customers. And so I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about it. And just, I mean, I've got to meet all you great people that would not have occurred had I not joined Facebook. And I only joined Facebook from listening to Brian's podcast. Or like I had taken a hiatus for a number of years, and because of the podcast, I joined back up and immediately got into the school group, and then like 2 days later I was an admin or something. Like, it was weird.
It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. No, I know that. Yeah, that's cool to hear. Yeah, for me, I met so many neat people. I didn't really have a community. There was a period of time that I was on Pro Talk. So a lot of people will remember Pro Talk. It's still around. But that was sort of there was a heyday of Pro Talk when really that was the place that you would go to communicate with other people in the trade. And it was good, but it did there was a certain tone to it that wasn't always positive. And I remember one time early on, I was probably 19 years old, and I gave I made a post on sequence of operation for a gas furnace. And of course, I'm a Florida boy. I'm only used to 80%. Like I have a very different perspective. And I went through and answered a question from somebody, and I still, to this day, I don't think I said anything wrong, but somebody really didn't like what I said, and basically, it took me apart, some version of, listen here, son, you shouldn't be answering questions if you don't know what the hell you're talking about, that kind of thing. And so that kind of, and it was fine, like you can deal with it. It's okay to have thick skin and to hear that, but it isn't a productive way of communicating. So I always kind of thought back to that when the time came to create our own group, of just like, all right, what do we want to create here? What is the goal? And I think just having the opportunity to meet people and to get different perspectives. One of the things I really appreciate is the ability to get perspectives from different regions. Because when you're in a particular region like Florida, Florida is very Florida. Like there's just some very Florida things that go on here that you don't get a perspective for other regions. And the group is a really great way to do that, because there's this constant stream of photos and questions and comments that are around totally different ways of doing things. And that's been like, I honestly don't think I could effectively do the podcast or the YouTube channel if I didn't have the group for that reason, because I just would be locked in my way of thinking.
Yeah, it's a great feeder for a lot of things on the education side for sure, because like you said, there's a lot of varied viewpoints on there. I love it because I'm able to keep up, since I'm not actively in the field on a day-to-day basis. I can keep up with a lot of things on there to make sure that stuff that I'm talking about is relevant, both from my own experiences and other people's experiences, and try to stay up with current trends in the industry, current issues that people may need to learn about or know about. So, and it's a great place to share and answer questions. I kind of see Facebook, and the one reason why I've stuck with it, because it's the closest thing to, like what you mentioned, Brian, about the old Pro Talk and some of the other discussion boards, that there's still a few of them around, but not nearly as many. Whereas I find like Instagram or some of the other things, and I guess LinkedIn is kind of that way, because I do participate in LinkedIn too, but it's the closest thing that I've found to that, because that was where honestly I gained a ton of knowledge in the industry from following people and learning people, and a lot of those people that I picked up with on those boards are now on Facebook as well, and have kind of made that transition into it.
Neil, how did you get kind of started in, because you kind of appeared at some point, and I've seen you kind of develop from being somebody who was really absorbing a lot of information to being a thought leader in your own right. So what does that evolution look like for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly like what got me started on HVAC Facebook forums. I think it was like Pro Talk, and I remember I came in kind of like a jerk, honestly, where I was like trying to show people that I'm smart or something and just cut people down, and someone like literally said, like, dude, why are you being a and I was like, I thought about it for a second. I was like, you know what, I'm being a jerk. So I kind of switched that up and tried to be more helpful. And that kind of right around then is when we met, Brian, and I didn't even know that. I listened to the podcast. I didn't know there was a group, and joined the group. And it's been, I can't explain how, it's hard to explain how beneficial it's been for me. So I've basically had like 2 jobs my whole life in HVAC, and they've both been like very niche, right? So they're very focused on a certain thing. So I have some strengths that are pretty strong, and then some big holes. And so it's really helpful to to be able to observe a lot of other smart people fill those holes. I met my business partner on your Facebook group, which, so if it wasn't for that, who knows what I'd be doing now. And obviously I feel like that group's a little special. There's a community of people like you guys that I can call and ask questions, or reach out to, and it's just been really helpful, and it's like you feel like you're a part of something. I also joke, like, what do plumbers and electricians do? I don't think they do like stuff like we do. So it's pretty cool to be part of other people where you can have like a creative outlet.
I'll tell you what electricians do. They have groups, and all they do is argue about very
Code,
abstract
right?
things in the National Electrical Code. Yeah, like what is it about electricians and their code? Like we don't. It's just a weird thing. Like we talk about code sometimes, but it's mostly regional, and it's not like the thing for them. I mean, I guess it's what they have. I guess when you just when you bend pipe and pull wire and don't clean up after yourself, that's all you've got to. That's all you got to think about is.
That's all you got is codes.
Yeah, and all you got is codes left over at the end of the day. Anyway, you got to rag on electricians a little bit. That's actually how I started in the trades, was as an electrical apprentice. Some people don't know that. All right, so let's talk about kind of some of our standards, because I think there's and a lot of people don't even agree. Some of you may not agree with some of my rules and some of my standards, and that's totally fine. And I've always said that, because I think early on people got this sense that I have a problem with swearing or something, that like it just really upsets me or something. It's like, no, I grew up in the trades, like I swear from time to time. It's not something that I'm either proud of or completely ashamed of. It's just a reality of how some people communicate. But my reason for banning most of that from the group is just how quickly it can get out of control. So when you eliminate certain types of language from the communication, then it just helps keep things a little bit more professional, which then it's the same reason why we don't do it with clients, right? I mean, if you think about why you don't just swear a blue blaze in front of a client or in front of your kids, or a lot of places where you don't swear, it's because you're removing something that can be misinterpreted or it could be misused or misunderstood in some way, and it just keeps things a little bit more cut and dry. But ultimately, it isn't so much, and you guys know kind of my general stance on this, it isn't so much the word somebody chooses as much as it is what they're doing with that word. So we let certain things slide because you're just using it as an explanatory thing. But as soon as it crosses over into a personal attack, that's where I have a real issue with it. So I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Because I've actually been torn on that at times. There's been a couple of times that I just thought, you know what, forget it. I'm just not gonna be as dogmatic about this. But then anytime I do start to let it slide, it seems like everything just gets out of control really quick.
Yeah, I think it's hard enough to manage it with these rules. So without them, we all know that, everyone that's been in these HVAC forums, we all know what it looks like without the rules, and it's just not as a helpful environment. So I feel like, if that's the goal, is to create a place where you can ask questions, get answers, minimal BS, then you're going to have some guidelines. And I think, if you allow swearing, it's like, at what context? Yeah, it's very easy to just stop stuff initially. Like even with posts that are, I could see a post that I'm about to like approve. I'm like, I don't have time to babysit this post. I'm not approving it. It's okay. I think the person may be have good intentions, but I know where this is going. So there's certain things that you just have to have some kind of guide rails, and I think you're doing the rules you said are doing a pretty good job with that.
One thing I would say is, just from a standpoint, or maybe to let listeners in, being an admin or a moderator is a big task and job. There's a lot that people probably don't see or think that goes on, and just kind of as Neil is alluding to, like, I mean, some stuff just can snowball out of control really quickly, and it's easier to just nip that in the bud. Like I'm like Ty, where a lot of things I'm like, oh, I'll give them another chance or whatever, especially at first when I was new to it. Whereas now I'm just like, ban, delete, whatever. And just because I don't have, I've got other things to do. And that's the thing. The other thing with all of us admins and moderators is, we all work in the field or, consulting or whatever we do. And so it's not our only thing that we have going on. And so, and we're fine with kidding around and joking, and we do that ourselves as well. But, you know, I think that sometimes people get butthurt over things. And so don't go messaging me on Facebook if you get kicked out or muted or whatever, because I don't care.
Don't worry, they just message me when you do that.
It's true.
I think we just send
It's
them all
true.
to Neil.
It's true. And I will confess, I am the worst admin of the group at this point, because I am both sloppy in terms of the things I approve sometimes. And I will just straight up ignore people. Like if somebody sends me those messages, because they do, I mean, I probably get more of them than anybody because of being the one who created the group in the first place. And I just ignore them. I don't, and it isn't because I don't care about people, because I do care about people, but the type of person who's going to come after me like, well, it's not, and it's all, here's what it always is. It's always some version of, well, how come you didn't ban them? Because they're the ones who started. It's like literally, I think at this point, everybody knows I have 10 kids. Like it's literally like my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old getting into an argument. Well, they're the one who started. It's like, seriously, folks, like, you know what the rules are. You all had to go through these things in order to accept the rules. Just abide by the rules or leave. And it's not because I don't care about you. It's not because I don't want you to have a great life, but there's tons of other groups that you can go to screw around and share weird memes and talk about politics and whatever you want to do, right? That's the internet is full of those. Some on Facebook, some off of Facebook. Have at it. I'm not judging you. Go do what you want to do. But in this space, just make it productive. We can have a good time too. Like there's room for a little bit of joking around. That's fine, but just make it productive. At the end, you want to walk away from it smarter, not dumber. And a lot of these cases, it's just childish. And I'm at the point where I just ignore it. In the same way when I get the emails, because I get those too. I mean, I've gotten personal threats because of the HVAC school group. I've gotten and you guys probably know who the person is from the good old days, Neil. I've gotten oh yeah, I'm gonna start leaving bad reviews for your company. I'm gonna put you on blast in these other groups, all this kind of stuff. It's just not worth it. And as soon as you engage, it just makes it worse. So that's where I'm at with all that. But in terms of the rules, and because I'm not about being dogmatic about the rules. It's not like, oh, you said ass. Oh my gosh, no, I'm gonna block you from the group. That's not the point. It's how you're interacting with other people and the ways in which you're using language. Usually if people will, they'll drop an F-bomb and it's not really ill intent, I'll usually just delete it. I don't even say anything to them. I just delete it. It's just hopefully it disappears and they don't even think about it and move on and, try better next time. But it's probably, again, like I said, I'm probably the worst admin because of that. Because in a lot of cases, I don't even send them a message about it. It's they'll figure it out.
Hopefully they can read the rules. I mean, if they're an HVAC, they should be able to at least read, I hope.
Well, it comes down to RTFM, right? So
yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge with a group like this is getting people to read and follow the rules. And I get it too, that people are in multiple groups. Like they will forget, oh crap, I'm in this group and now I've got to follow these rules versus this other group. Where I don't have to follow these rules. And yeah, it's the trade. And I can see that from one standpoint, and we're talking to other tradespeople, but it's also a practice area, kind of like what Michael said earlier. It's a great area to practice using your customer voice, as somebody once told me. You have to have a customer voice, and it's a great way to practice that and to respect other people and things like that. That you both learn the respect and you get the respect if you give it. Has been my experience.
I've had the opposite experience. I've had people just give us really positive feedback saying, hey, I love what you're doing, from the podcast to Facebook group, the videos, and they just love that they can come in and get a good solid answer. I have tons of some of the big ones I'll share with the group, but I just get a lot of really positive feedback. So I think that's really cool. I didn't know all this negative stuff was happening on the other sides, but I've had nothing but positive feedbacks on my side. Now, I've had some,
That's because
some
you're the
people.
most positive person in the
Right, that's
world.
why. Right,
So-
right. You get back what you put out into the
Absolutely.
universe. So that's what's
I
going
have
on.
upset plenty of people though. I had one guy the other day. Nice, long, thought out. Like I'm horrible at spelling. Anybody that's seen my messages probably think, what was he trying to say? I've even spelled my own name wrong multiple times. But I really thought, this reply out, and I made everything, where you could read it as legible, the proper words and grammar, which is really difficult for me. And then the guy who came back all mad, like, how dare you attack me? You're treating me like a kid. I was like, whoa, wait, I am sorry. I apologize. That was not my intent at all. And that was without any vulgarity. So I could see how quickly things could turn. But I've had really great positive feedback from messages about the group.
Yeah, and that's always nice. And that is, it's interesting how we all do that, where we focus on the negative. And if for whatever reason the negative accumulates, where the positive dissipates. So you can have somebody says something nice, it's like, okay, that's nice, and then it's off into the ether. Whereas the negative just keeps growing, and I've had that happen a few times with the group. I mean, in fact, I'm kind of coming off a bit of a hiatus here, where I've just sort of disappeared for a time, and a lot of it just has to do with life and business stuff. I mean, we all have that, where things are just, there's a lot. But it does. If you let it build up, it makes things worse, and then you find yourself, having a persona or personality on social media that doesn't really represent who you are, which is kind of my encouragement in general to people who want to interact in these spaces. If you really have a heart to help people, and it's not about your ego, it's not about seeming a certain way, but it's about being authentically you and helping other people, then that does come through. And people will make mistakes. I mean, like you said, that it's easy to accidentally say something in the wrong group. An example one time is I got kind of like harsh with somebody about their way that they were acting in the group, because they were breaking the rules in some way, and then I realized it wasn't my group. so so I had to eat crow pretty quick there. And I've certainly misbehaved in other groups at times too, just because of like disagreements. So I know what it's like to misbehave even in those spaces. But again, like the thing that counteracts all of that is also just humility. If you realize that you did overstep, or you were maybe having a bad day and said something you shouldn't say, then the right thing to do is just say, yeah, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I'll do better. That's the secret to a lot of things. It's also the secret to staying married, apparently. So my wife hasn't divorced me yet, so I think I'm at least doing all right on that front. So yeah, I guess that leads kind of to the next question. So in terms of being the most helpful, so like, what are some of the traits, and it's okay if we call out some individuals who do a really good job at it, but what are some of the traits or tips that you would give for being of the most benefit to others when interacting on social media, and specifically the HVAC School Facebook group?
I'm going to say thinking about answers before giving them, like really digging into something.
Yeah.
Oftentimes there's a lot of questions that get asked on there, and I just flat out don't have time to answer them. Like if I see something, I'll be like, okay, I got to think about this a minute, give a reasonable answer. I see so many like 1 word or 2 word or single sentence answers, like it's a piece of junk. Well, okay, great. How does that help? It
Yeah.
doesn't really, you're not answering the question. You're not trying to help out. And sometimes I'll see people give really limited amounts of information, and a lot of answers are given out. Oh, it has to be this. It has to be this. And I'm like, wow, you guys need to slow down, back up, realize you got to have a lot more information to make a diagnosis. And there's a lot of possibilities out there. And I think that's one of the challenges of social media in general, is that it's a lot of got to go faster, got to see the next thing, got to run to the next thing. And it's challenging sometimes to sit back and go, okay, I've got to think about a good answer, write down a good answer, word out a good answer, and not be the shortest answer in the group, which is what I feel like a lot of the answers are, is a competition for who can type the least amount of words.
Or answer the
I think
fastest too.
Phil.
Yeah.
It's also you have to think about your posts, like your original post or whatever, which often lack information and things as well. And so it can sometimes be difficult uh kind of to craft good answers when all the information isn't there. So I would say to, try to add as much detail as you can to your posts and, um, try to be helpful, like Eric's saying. I mean, sometimes these 1 or 2 word answers are just not helpful, and surely the people giving them understand that, or at least that's the way it seems sometimes, right? And you're just kind of muddying the waters for someone that really wants to learn, and or maybe they're on a service call and need like real help right now. Just kind of be respectful to people.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing too is like you never know what kind of a day somebody else on the other end of that post is having. Are they having a bad day? Are they somebody hounding them? Do they have a customer breathing down their neck about the issue that they're asking about? Maybe their boss is breathing down their neck and they can't figure it out. They're trying to do something, whatever. But to people that are posting new things, it's really I see a lot of first time posts that have questions that are very regional. So it's like, okay, I've got this problem. Well, what area of the country are you in? Because that makes a big difference. We alluded to code conversations earlier, like that happen to a lot of the electricians because they actually have a national electrical code, whereas we have no national HVAC code. It's by city, by county, by parish, by state, whatever you want to talk about. And it's a huge mishmash of messed up mush that who knows what it is. And it's challenging for me when I see questions like, how do I get this license? And I'm like, okay, what
Right.
area are you in? I don't even know what code you're asking about. What's code? I don't know. I don't know what area you're in. What code are you on? So it becomes very challenging sometimes to answer those questions for sure.
I think one of the important things too in answering a question is having a pretty good idea that you're correct. I try not to answer every single question. If I don't know, I'm not saying every time I answer it it's right, but I think I'm right at least. I feel pretty strongly about that. I just see a lot of answers that is like, there's no way that you think you know that. You just trying to answer something, and usually there's 4 words. So that, and I also try to, when answering a question, provide a little bit of like my sources, I guess, if possible. Sometimes, and find it helpful, at least for myself, to read it more in depth, to kind of point someone in the right direction. Maybe give them maybe the answer is relatively short, but here, if you want to dig in a little deeper, here you go. I find that helpful, so I try to do that when possible.
Weren't you going to say something earlier, Ty?
Oh, always. No, I disagree with Neil. I kind of do the opposite of the short letter. My stuff is usually extremely too long, and most people don't want to read it anyways. But I do like the sourcing because I've just learned that I've been told so much false information, and I believed it was true because somebody I trusted told it to me. I now research a lot more, and I want to know why a lot more now. So I'll post a lot of links, and I try to keep them short because I know we don't want to flood with links. But I do try to source the code, like where I found this information, and if you want to learn more about it, here's the relevance of it. So I think that is important because maybe there's not that many people that want to do that, but we don't really know in the background how many people are really clicking on that don't talk, that want to know more. And so I figured that if there's one other person like me that wants to know why and how and where that comes from, then here's the link. Learn more about it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's
there's also such wealth of stuff on the HVAC school website that I try to link to whenever I can. Sometimes I forget or whatever, but the search feature works really well. And so a lot of questions that people ask, there's probably a tech tip about it. And so trying to kind of refer people back to that so they're not just taking my word, because unlike Neil, everything I answer is correct, but
very true. Very true. And actually, and this is what I was going to add to this conversation about being useful, is that like a lot of the best learning that I've done or that I've seen other people do in groups of all sorts is, and especially our group, I like to believe, is really vigorous debate. Where there's a lot of like, well, what about this? What about that? I've seen this. What about this example? Here's something that seems to say this. Here's something that seems to say that. And that's happened a few times. And a few times it's happened with people like Jeremy Smith or Jim Bergman or you guys. And there'll just be this and this rigorous debate. And regardless of how right you were, even if you were 98% right, you come away from it having 2% more understanding of it. Because in a lot of cases, you have a working model in your head. I think about this a lot, the idea of mental models. We build our understanding of the world around us through approximations, so through mental similes. Like our understanding of how electricity works is not actually how electricity works. It's a mental model that we've developed. And I have a pretty good working mental model that allows me to solve a lot of problems, but there's a few things that just I struggle with. And then recently, I think Steve Rogers shared that video from Veritasium, and it was like, whoa, okay, yeah, now all of a sudden a lot more stuff makes sense that didn't make sense before. And I like to think that I'm pretty solid when it comes to electrical theory, but it really shook up a lot of things. And that's super exciting to me. And I think that's a healthy dynamic that can occur in some of these spaces where people are actually excited to learn something that they didn't know, or to find out that their mental model was severely flawed in some way. And I think that's a really good litmus test for people who are good contributors to your group versus people who are not. People who are happy to find out that they've been wrong for 20 years and now they can be right, versus people who are like pissed off about the fact that they've been wrong for 20 years and want to defend that position as hard as they possibly can. And while I understand that impulse, because there is like a little bit of ego that goes into that, like it's far more cool to actually now understand something better. And I can think of a lot of different examples of this that have gone on through the years, especially between Jim and I. And some of this has happened on social media, and some of it has happened outside of that, just via phone calls. Because Jim started, getting in the habit of whenever a tech tip would go out, he would just call me immediately after and tell me what was wrong with what I just said, which is super cool as well. Yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on that, as far as some of those vigorous kind of debates and where the lines should be drawn there?
Yeah, I love it. Kind of when I post, it's usually trying to do that, I guess. So, but like Flex Duck, for instance, there's some people that just no matter what, you're never going to convince them that it should belong on this planet. And yeah, there's a lot. I could think of this one guy in particular, and I think I convinced him one day. I was like, "Oh my God, I've been, butting heads with you for like months," and I convinced him. And then something happened, and then he was right back to where he was. I don't know, and then he left the group. So, but yeah,
maybe he was drinking that
like,
one night and
like
feeling especially impressionable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Healthy debates are definitely good, right? And so we just need to be respectful about it, and hopefully that comes across, because I do same sort of stuff as Neil, right? There's certain topics that I'll try to press people's buttons on or whatever as well, and it's more because like the industry really needs it, in my opinion. And so it's worth pressing buttons to try to get people to think differently about certain things. But I mean, as long as people are respectful, then there's nothing wrong with a difference of opinion. And we should have more of it, really. I mean, it's just, watch the name calling and things like that, because it is hard. It can easily turn into something like that, or pointing fingers, or things that just aren't helpful.
Do you have a case study for that, Michael?
Yeah.
And if you have to bring in who you voted for, or accuse somebody else of voting for somebody,
oh my God!
If you have to bring that, it has absolutely no relevance. You've lost everything about your debate, and all you're doing is just another way of doing an insult. And that's the point where I'm like, okay, we're done. Personal attacks, personal name calling, people call people out, or they bring in, well, you probably voted for. I'm like, has zero relevance.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Or
call that
it's
an ad
Chinese
hominem.
junk or whatever, right? It's
Yeah.
like, wait, all this stuff just drives me nuts, actually. But I try not to let it get to me. But political stuff, and the blaming China for all the world's problems is like, give me a break.
Yeah. It's just reducing other people down to a meme so that way you can dismiss them. And I certainly do that. And anytime I have done that, Neil calls me out on it. So I always appreciate that. But that's an impulse that we can all have. And that's just a really, really bad impulse. Humans are humans. They're complicated. They deserve respect regardless of how they're acting in this moment. And that doesn't mean that they don't get kicked out of my group if they're acting against the rules, but they're still valuable. And that's something that I think we can all fall into at times. And Nathan and I are doing a series of podcasts on logical fallacies. And the ad hominem attack is like the logical fallacy of choice in today's world, which is the unrelated personal attack where you group people. Often nowadays, it's grouping people into certain groups. Oh, you're probably you're a millennial. Oh, you're woke. You're just some version of that. And it got nothing to do with it. And ultimately, in these more rigorous debates, a lot of times the right answer is to say, okay, I'm going to go back and test this. And then I'm going to come up with some tests to kind of give an example of this. And that's how I won my most epic battle with Jim Bergman on the whole moisture issue, was to actually go back and like set up a window unit and set up a humidifier and do before and after testing and all that. And that's what ended up kind of like transforming the conversation, because we really weren't understanding each other. In a lot of cases, that's what it is. It's not so much that one person is right and one is wrong. It's that there's this disconnect in communication, and getting kind of past that is what then allows you to understand something new. And that's the goal. The goal is to have an applicable understanding of a new concept, not just having information jingling around in your head, but something that is actually going to be useful to you in your profession. That's the best feedback I can ever get from somebody, is that there was something that you did or said, or a conversation that was had, or a video that was made, or a tech tip that actually in some way impacted their professional career and helps them, enjoy their work more or support their family better in some way. That's the most rewarding thing that you can do in the trade. And, and groups like this are honestly an opportunity to do that in a very real way, without necessarily having a YouTube channel or having a website. You get a chance to do that. And that is if you look at it as kind of an honor to be able to do that, it kind of helps keep you a little more straight.
Yeah, I 100% agree. With you. People have reached out to me a few times that out of nowhere, that I've never even seen them in the group or anything, and been like, hey, I just want to thank you. And, that's definitely makes you feel good, makes it, feel worth it, putting some time in. But wasn't sure if it was brought up, but I feel like ego for a lot of people is holding them back in these groups from learning. I'm guilty of it. I think everyone is to a degree, but I just see a lot of egos that prevent people from progressing. I think it's just, that's their choice. Maybe they're not aware of it, but it's really holding them back from taking maybe that next step in their knowledge.
Yeah, I think of people like I think of David Richardson as a good example of somebody who's like really, really bright and brings so much to the industry and has helped so many people. And I've learned so much from over the years, a lot of his writing. And I haven't taken NCI courses per se, but I've just followed him for years, and just oozes humility. Like there's nothing that he doesn't come across at all like I've got all the answers and I'm going to preach at you about, the way things need to be done. And you see that, Bill Spohn is another example of a guy like that, where like I've learned so much about airflow from Bill and measurement technologies. Steve Rogers, another example. And, Steve sometimes can get a little aggressive, but it's not ego. He just really wants to learn. He's really excited about the stuff he's talking about. There's so many examples of people like that, that I've bumped into. And those ultimately are not only the people who make the most growth themselves, because that's always kind of what they're pursuing. They're always pursuing actually understanding things better themselves, but then in turn end up helping people a lot more because people are so much more receptive to somebody who's a lifelong learner than somebody who thinks that they know it all. And you'll hear people say some version of, well, I don't know everything. It's like, if you have to say that, that's like don't say that, because that's a given. Everybody knows you don't know everything because nobody knows everything, right? So you don't even say that. Just come into it with a posture of wanting to learn and saying, this is what I've learned, this is how I understand this. And again, like you all have said, I certainly struggle with that, especially when people try to tell me the other things cause capacitors to fail, other than over temperature and over voltage. Then I get a little positional about it, but I can learn from that. So,
But all the ants on top of them too, right?
yeah, well, sure, maybe ants. It's insulator. Yeah.
Well, what about the all of us that discharge capacitors with screwdrivers? Does that hurt them?
Okay, yeah, that can do it. I've heard that can do it, but I've never actually experienced one exploding in my hands. It is fun.
How about this
though,
one?
I was
How
going to say,
about this one? Oh, where you have your capacitor went bad, so you're going to lose capacity of your system. You need to replace it.
Oh, you really? You've actually heard somebody do that for?
In text, I have it screenshotted.
Oh, wow. Any reason to sell a system, though? Let me tell you what. They probably also need a bipolar ionization unit as well after that.
and it's obviously a bad TXV.
It's a bad TXV too. Yeah, for sure. And that's actually, and that's another example. So let's talk about that. How about catchphrases, slogans, and common jokes? Let's talk about that, because I don't think that's expressly forbidden, but that gets so old. Like, I don't know, bad TXV.
But it's hard because at the same time we have RTFM, right? You know what I mean? It's like
it is true. Yeah.
The TXV thing drives me completely insane, though. I just scroll past all of that stuff. I mean, but
that joke was old 5 years ago or 6 years ago when it started, during the whole compressor. What was it when?
Yeah, the rust inhibitor or whatever.
The rust inhibitor thing, because that's when that joke started. Like when every TXV was failing, but it wasn't the TXV's fault.
Yeah, and you're right. So that is fair. I had a temporary kind of conniption fit when there was another group that was bringing their slogan into my group, and that was a little bit of a thing. But yeah, you're right. RTFM, and again, to me, the only reason RTFM is funny is because I replace the actual F word with fantastic, and that to me makes it funny, because otherwise it has been around forever. And of course there is some obviously an underlying truth there that we do want to read the fantastic manual. But anyway, I don't know. I guess it really isn't that funny of a joke anyway. So I think
without context is the problem, right? Like, so it's these catchphrases that no one says anything. So even just posting RTFM without, some sort of few words explanation or something like that is sort of aggravating as well. And so that's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, and I think that's what tends to happen sometimes for those of us who have done it for a while, because I felt myself get burned out. And so you do start to not give enough words because you just don't feel like getting into it. I mean, I remember when I first started, I would write a book every time and share links and all that stuff. And now it's like, if I do say something, I it's like, for example, I put up a social media post about how, black jacketed ductwork picks up more radiant heat from the roof deck, and how that actually results in some cases when you replace it with silver, the silver will start sweating when the black duct wasn't. That was kind of the point of what I was trying to make, because we've seen that happen. And everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but the majority of technicians don't understand that radiant heat can occur even when there's no visible light. And I just had people commenting like so I'm going to make a confession here. Okay. So somebody posted and said, like, you need to go back to school. You don't understand. Like, that's how he started in with me. And so I responded with, maybe before making posts, you should actually understand anything about how radiant heat works. Have a nice life, maybe, so that's not a great way to respond to people. And these are the things that Neil tells me I need to stop doing. Or for a while, especially in YouTube, I don't do this in the group, but in YouTube, because people leave awful comments on YouTube, whenever they say really ridiculous things, my kind of stock response is, some version of I'm sorry that I wronged you, I'll do better next time, or thank you for your kind feedback, something like that, which I still feel okay about that. But yeah, in general, tongue-in-cheek or sarcastic responses probably aren't the most helpful.
It depends on who they're helpful to, because sometimes we have to make them for our own mental health.
For mental health, yeah, mental health reasons, yeah. I guess I can see that. But back to the positive side of things. How do you see? So I want to kind of just finish off as we wrap this up. For people who, because, and again, this is podcast. This is going to probably go on YouTube too. So some people may not be in the group, or some people may have been in the group a long time, but have maybe stopped contributing. What are like some of your final kind of top tips, or maybe even kind of feedback to the other admins and moderators about how to really make it a successful experience and actually benefit from it? And I will start with Michael.
Oh, great. So I mean, I don't really know a good answer to that question, but I think just, keeping things positive and trying to be as helpful as possible, at least as admins. I think that's how we all made it to be admins and moderators in the group. You showed some level of expertise and respect, even though we all have our own personalities and some of us, have our own ways of trolling people or each other or whatever. But I mean, that's what makes it all fun, and it should be fun. And there are times for it to be serious, and just, be respectful of everybody and everyone's time and effort that they're putting in to the group. That's kind of my 2 cents there, I guess.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think it's also important to know who you're talking to. Like, because you run into some people who you just know are very serious. Like, they just don't, that they're there for serious, and then respect that. But I think there is also room for people who you are friends with and you have a relationship with, and that it's okay to be a little sarcastic. It's okay to jab back and forth a little bit, so long as you recognize that the people who are observing that may not always understand that. So if it does get where it kind of maybe crossed a line in someone else's mind, just kind of call it out quickly so people know that it's okay with both of you, and that you're not actually you don't want to set a precedent that's not helpful. Oh, now Jordan wants to enter the call, so that's a little late, Jordan.
I mean, use emojis, right? Use the winky face or whatever, right? I mean, it's like not that hard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, winky face. Good tip. Michael's top tip is use winky face. That's what we all took away from this. Ty, what are your thoughts?
I think it comes down to two things. Do you care to help people? I mean, if you're going to answer a question, do you care to really help the people? Or you're just doing it for your own benefit. If you really care to help people, then you're on the right track. And then the second thing is be open to learn. I mean, be open to, if you find yourself starting to get defensive or getting nervous, then use that as a trigger to be like, okay, I'm going to put my guard down and I'm going to go and research or learn and talk to the person. And I've learned so much that way. I know I love talking to Jim, and he'll ask me a question and I start immediately getting nervous because I know I'm not going to know the answer and I look like an idiot again. And then I feel that coming up like, okay, I don't know the answer, Jim. Just teach me. Just show me this what you want, and we'll get to that straight to the point. And I think that's so important here. And if you do that, you'll get to help people and you get to make friends. You get to learn a lot of stuff. I've learned so much in this group alone from little some stuff I never even comment on. I learned stuff, and then the friends I've made. Friends like Eric will be like, "Hey Ty, I think you're being a little bit harsh today," or I come up to Michael, I'll be like, "Michael, man, I'm having a bad day. I'm gripe about something, or something about ductwork," and I call Neil. I'm like, "Neil, hey, look, I'm sending a big old long text, and he's like 2 answers. Oh, here's the answer," and then I feel like an idiot for writing this whole long text. But just it all comes from those 2 things, where you're helping people, you're learning, and then the next thing you know, you're making friends, you're making contacts, and everybody wins.
Yeah, it is a really good point. Like, if you're ever coming in to just try to teach other people and you don't want to learn yourself, then just don't, because you always learn the most through teaching. And and being open to that, like, oh wait, I said that and maybe that isn't quite exactly right, like maybe I have a question about that, and then going back and then being willing to come back and say, you know what, I was wrong, this isn't how this works, and this is how this actually works, here's a resource. I've done that so many times. That's what HVAC school is just doing that over and over and over again until you get a little bit more right each time. What are your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, give yourself and everybody room to be wrong, or great grace to not know as much as you think you know. It kind of goes back to your mantra on a lot of the podcast, right? It's room to know some things you forgot to know in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've loved about the group is I love to learn, and I see people in here that have so much different knowledge than I do every day, and I'm like, wow, okay, I didn't realize that's how that worked, because I never dug into it. I've never run into it. Maybe it's one of the neat things about the trade is there's so many different facets and different um, fields of it, and not every facet fits every person. Like, I think every one of us thinks that the area we work in the trade is the best. Residential's the best, commercial's the best, install is the best. But we got to realize that there's all these different facets that have to be done, and every person has a different thing that they need. So realize that maybe that person is in the place that they need to be in, or they want to be in, and they might not want to change. Or if they do want to change and they're open to it, have that discussion. But we can't force, I don't think we should try to force people to change. A lot of times it's like, hey, here's the information. If you want to read it, it's yours. If not, okay, that's your choice.
Yeah, and it's always helpful to remember like where you were 10 years ago. And like some of the stuff I was doing 10 years ago, I mean, it is like so horrible that I would never even repeat it on the air. And does that mean that I didn't care? Does that mean I was an idiot? I mean, probably, but that's just me. I mean, like you just grow, right? And so, and at the time, if at the time 10 years ago, my version of myself today had come along and tried to dump everything on myself, I would have been like, who's this idiot? He thinks he knows everything, he thinks he's King Blobbity Blah over here, as John Israel once dubbed me. And actually, I do think I'm King Blobbity Blah, and thank you for the title. I appreciate it. But yeah, it's not fair to do that to people, and to think that they should all be at the same level that you're at today in terms of understanding things. Because honestly, the me of 10 years ago was also much better at certain things than I am now. Actually, the application of the trade, in many ways, I was better because I was doing it every day. So just realizing that and giving people that grace, I think is a really great point.
Yeah, you guys made some great points. I don't really have too much to add. But yeah, as far as what you get out of the group, I feel like if you're humble and you try to be helpful, it's going to work out. Things will come back around to you. But that's kind of, I try to take that approach, and I feel like I get way more out of the group than I give. But I try to give when I can, when I feel like I can be helpful. So that's my approach.
It's kind of, it sounds like the Kid Rock approach. You get what you put in, and people get what they deserve. I botched that, but yeah, he has lots of good quotes from the great philosopher, poet laureate Kid Rock. The final thing that I wanted to mention was the one thing that comes up a lot is people sharing stuff in the group. And here's what's great. It's great when people share relevant links to a question or something that's coming up from any source. Doesn't matter to me where it comes from. That's great. Answering a question. Hey, here's a video, here's a podcast, here's a tip, here's whatever. That's great. But what you'll notice is I don't share my podcasts. I can't say podcasts anymore. Podcasts, tech tips, or videos in the group when I release them. I don't do that because there's a lot, and that would start to take over the group. That's what the page is for. So I release that stuff on the page. I release it in other social channels. I don't do it in the group. And so what happens sometimes is creators, especially newer ones, like to put their latest video, their latest tech tip, their latest podcast in the group. And sometimes I will allow it for a season. And the reason I do that sometimes is when people are just getting started and I like them and I want them to kind of build up an audience, and that's okay. And so there's certain cases where I will allow that if I really know somebody. If Ty wants to post a video in the group, I'm going to let him post a video in the group because he's Ty, right? But eventually, if it's like every day he's posting in the group, I'm going to be like, all right, like, okay, and the point is not, I don't think your stuff's valuable. The point is the group is not about blasting information. The group is about community discussions. And that's a big difference between a group and a page. A page is about me saying, hey, look at my stuff. A group is about the people who are in the group presenting their questions and topics. And sometimes I'll create a topic or a question, but it's not about posting jobs or talking about your company or giving your agenda, because that will immediately become way too much. That'll become what the group is all about. And so that's the reason why I can't do that. And so I'm addressing this here just in case you're listening and you wonder about that, or maybe you're a creator and you're like, why didn't Brian allow me to post myself in his group? And the worst is when people try to push their group in the HVAC school group. It's like, that doesn't even make any sense. It's like, it's not that I have a problem with your group, but like, why would you market one HVAC group and another HVAC group? Like, just market it using your own channels. So I'm sure I have competitive drives like anyone else, and I'm sure sometimes that's the reason why I do things, but I work to battle that, because ultimately there's nobody who does what we do that I'm competing against. It's actually about sharing information, and in the group, I just don't want it to become overly noisy. So I just wanted to put that in there real quick. Anybody else have anything to add on that, or any other topic before we wrap up here? Anything you want to throw in there at the last second? No?
Yeah, I think the one thing I want to throw in is that, like, all of the original posts, the original thing you see, the original post that's all moderated before it hits the group. Like, we see that, we delete a lot of stuff before it ever hits that group. It's crazy how much some people put in there, and there's a lot of stuff that, like, links to other groups, like Brian just mentioned. We're probably not going to do that. Share it as the original thing. Because a lot of times other groups, they'll get deleted, or the link gets redirected, something like that a lot of times. So, or the privacy gets changed on it if it's another Facebook group or something like that, and suddenly you can't see that anymore. I see a lot of things come across that are private. Well, I can't see them. Well, if I can't see them, nobody else is going to be able to see them, so they don't go into the group.
Yeah, it's a really good point. That's actually one of the things that make our group, I don't know if it's completely unique, but very rare, is that we actually do moderate all the posts, which makes it a lot more work. And it also kind of creates a delay. So like, you don't want to ask technical questions that like you're waiting at the unit for the answer. It's not the right place for that. Probably, use Blue On tech support or something like that if that's what you need, or manufacturer tech support, or call somebody who's your mentor or whatever. But that's not really what's going to work in the HVAC school group. And it's for the reason of trying to keep it a little bit cleaner.
Well, it also makes it a lot easier to moderate on the back end, though, too.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Like people said earlier in the discussion, we try to keep some things that I don't have time to sit here and watch that today, because it's just going to blow up into a royal boat of stinky, smelly stuff.
Right. And that's often what happens sometimes, because my rule is I'm okay with people asking dumb questions, because some people will be like, well, why'd you let them ask such a question? But sometimes if it's really bad, we won't allow it, just because we know that it's not even formulated in a way that anything productive is going to come out of this. So you got to have at least some basic idea that we can work with here. Otherwise, we just know it's not going to go well.
Another thing that's a really valuable resource that doesn't get used enough, I think, is the search bar, where you can like literally search the group, like what boots you want or something. It's there. But I use it all the time to just, instead of posting a question on something I know I've seen before, I'll just do the search bar and usually find my answer.
Yeah, great point. And sometimes you can even kind of like restart a conversation. If you go find one and it's like maybe you have another question, often you can just, ask it, and it'll kind of restart the conversation if it's something that maybe is in the right theme, but you just want to ask a different angle on it. All right, that is it for this discussion. Thank you so much. I wanted everybody to kind of get a chance just to see some of the faces behind the group as well. There are a lot more. I think Jordan got his time zones wrong, so he tried to join right here at the end. That's one downside with Google chat, or whatever you call this, that it doesn't necessarily show the time zone properly. So it's confusing, time zones, very confusing stuff. But yeah, we have people from all over the country who help us do this, and it's very much appreciated that you guys take the time. Certainly something you don't have to do, but it matters to me, and I definitely do appreciate it. So thanks for taking the time to do this as well. taking time away from your families and lives to do it. It's always much appreciated.
Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it and got something out of it, if you wouldn't mind hitting the thumbs up button to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notifications bell to be notified when new videos come out. HVAC School is far more than a YouTube channel. You can find out more by going to hvacrschool.com, which is our website and hub for all of our content, including tech tips, videos, podcasts, and so much more. You can also subscribe to the podcast on any podcast app of your choosing. You can also join our Facebook group if you want to weigh in on the conversation yourself. Thanks again for watching.